Is it risky? Joining me right now, former Deputy Chief of Staff to President George W. Bush, Karl Rove. Hey, Karl. Good to see you.
Hey, how are you?
I'm so glad to talk to you today because I've been trying to think about what this might mean for Republicans if, in fact, we get a shutdown because there's not enough funding for the wall. Is that a disaster in your book?
Not good for a couple reasons. First of all, the Republicans, the ordinary voters looking there saying the Republicans hold the White House, you hold the Senate, you hold the House, and you can't get your act together to pass this funding for something that you want. Why are you trying to blame it on Democrats? And the second issue is look, border security is popular, but the wall per se is not. If you look at the polls, the president has the support of a majority of the American people on securing the border and toughening it. He has only a minority support on the idea of, quote, building the wall.
So if there's some kind of compromise that he could reach, that might be the way to go. I mean, in other words, you get some money for parts of the wall that need to be strengthened or communities
repaired
that need something.
Right.
Yeah. And then you also invest in personnel, you invest in technology so that we actually have a border.
Yeah, look, two things. One is the Democrats are not going to be interested in doing compromises between now and November. They think they're going to take the House. They think they've got a shot at the Senate. They're not going to want to do anything that gives President Trump a win. The second issue is the president will get a bunch of border security money in the appropriation for the Department of Homeland Security, because if you look at the bills as they're moving through the House and Senate, there's a good slug of money for technology, for infrastructure, for an expansion of the Border Patrol. There isn't very much money in there for the wall, even though there's money that is necessary to repair the existing 600-plus miles of wall that we already have. Look, that wall was authorized in 2005, a bunch of it, and we're approaching 10 and 12 years that wall has been in place, and some of it needs to be repaired and some of it needs to be replaced. There's not going to be a lot of money in the DHS budget for that, but there's going to be a lot of money for other things that have to do with border security, and you can count on Democrats pointing to that, saying, look, I'm in favor of border security. I voted for technology, more people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, they didn't vote for tax cuts, though. I mean, maybe that'll be a line of argument.
No, they did not.
What's your advice right now to Republicans so that they can hold on to the House?
Well, the Republicans have got to be talking not just simply about the economy. That's the most important thing. Talk about what Republican policies are bringing about in terms of increased economic growth, but be talking about the things that individual Republican members want to do in the future to continue that economic progress. We need to be talking about restraining government spending. We need to be talking about making tax cuts permanent. We need to be talking about increasing the regulatory relief. We need to be talking about dealing with entitlements. Republicans need to be out there saying we're on a good path, but we got to keep going. They can't simply sit on their laurels and point to what they've already done.
So is immigration then a distraction in your view? This whole talk of the wall and the shutdown, et cetera?
No, the talk of the shutdown is a problem because people, no matter whether it's Republicans or Democrats who ultimately get held responsible for shutdown, people don't like the government to be shut down. They want you to stay at work. But is it strong? Does it help Republicans to go out there and talk about I want to have a strong, secure border, and here are concrete steps that we need to take? Absolutely, but they got to be things that cause people to say, you know what, there's a middle ground to be found here. And you're right, we need more Border Patrol, we need technology, we need more infrastructure along the border. I want to do something about violent gangs. These kind of things are very helpful for Republican candidates this fall, but they got to be careful about making it simply about one thing. Build the wall is a great slogan at a rally for the Republican base. It's not a good slogan in a general election where you got to get independents and some Democrats to vote for you.
Karl, the president is calling for this Mueller probe to end. He wants Jeff Sessions to make sure it ends. What's your response to that?
Look, I may be in the minority among Republicans on this. I think this is a mistake for the president. It makes it look like he's got something to hide. I think Trey Gowdy is right. You're innocent. Act innocent. I think at the end of the day, look, if there was conspiracy and collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, we'd know about it, because the Trump campaign was the leakiest campaign I've ever seen in my life.
That's true.
And there would have been somebody who would have spilled their guts about it. So I think at the end of the day, Bob Mueller is going to do, I think, a good job. we're going to find some bad actors. We've seen them. One of them's on trial today in Alexandria, Virginia,
yeah, but
on
for
charges
financial
that he
crimes,
tried,
not for
unconnected to the campaign, which
to...
occurred years before the president's campaign. And I think at the end of the day, the president would be well advised to lower the temperature, let this thing play out, and at the end of it, I think it's going to be vindication for him. And what better vindication than from Bob Mueller? He undermines the credibility of that vindication, however, by looking like he's got something to hide. I think Gabby is right.
That said, I was looking very carefully at what Mueller is technically charged with. I'm going to share this later in the show because I know he's looking into the Russians, but part of that language is specifically to look into Donald Trump's campaign and whether or not the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians. If they're going to look into the Trump campaign, why aren't they looking, Karl, into the Hillary campaign, which, by the way, paid a guy to go dig up dirt on overseas soil in Russia, and the Russians knew he was there. They may have been feeding him a bunch of disinformation. Why don't we look at that?
You know what?
What?
You know what? I bet you a dime to a dollar that he is. He's just not leaking about it. And Hillary Clinton's smart enough to sit there and say, I don't want to be spending a lot of time looking like I'm wringing my hands over this. But I bet you, look, Mueller is literally an Eagle Scout. And he's going to handle this thing straight up, in my opinion, and he's going to look at it all and let the cards fall where they may. And we know that the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign hid payments to an opposition research firm, Fusion GPS, by funneling it through a law firm, and they're the people who hired the former British spy who reached out to his confidential sources inside Russia. So absolutely, I bet you Mueller's looking at that.
I hope so. Then that's good, because we deserve those answers. We need to know what the heck Putin was up to, because, I'll tell you, the mainstream media and some lawmakers are playing straight into his hands. And this is the divisiveness we're left with. Karl Rove, thank you, sir. Good to have you here.